Nikolay ARTEMENKO, thank you for joining us on MediaBox, Congress MediaBox. You are one of the youth delegates of Congress and you represent your country, Russia, in 29th session of the Congress. And you just participated the debate on guidelines for preventing radicalization. And you had a speech there. It was also important and interesting speech. So let's start with your statement. What would you like to say about the role of young people and young voices on prevention of radicalization?
First of all, I want to say that youngsters and young people all over the world plays the crucially important role in preventing radicalization. First of all, we have to educate youngsters, starting from the elementary school, even from the kindergarten, give them knowledge what is hate, what is radicalism, what is even extremism and terrorism, just to give them these basics and to prevent in the future some different things like participation in terroristic organizations and so on. And I don't believe that we can re-educate those who are after 25 years or something like this. And we should focus on youngsters, on really young teenagers who are still could be not maybe re-educated, and they're open for new knowledge, and they're very easily can be manipulated by some radical groups. And our task nowadays is to prevent this involvement into these radical groups, give them knowledge, give them education. And of course, young people, teenagers, that's the future of our countries, future of Europe and future of our world. And we should focus on them more seriously than we're doing it nowadays. And we should give them an opportunity to participate in social political process, in decision-making process, because without youth participation, it's impossible to build a sustainable future.
And when we look at from that point, you also made some proposals, recommendations to the Congress in your speech, and you mentioned very different points. So could you please just remind and underline these points to us? What should Congress of local and regional authorities can do more to fight with radicalization?
You know that mostly in this context we are speaking about some general thoughts, that we should raise awareness, we should educate. If focus on some specific things, what the Congress could do, what the Council of Europe could do to prevent radicalization. For example, they can start the regular activity in the secondary schools or even in the primary schools. Just an example, each month they could provide one lesson that will be held by some independent experts of the lessons on the topic of anti-radicalization. It's explaining the difference, I don't know, in between religions, what is Islam, what is Christianism, and so on. So just to every month, once or maybe twice a month, or once in 2 months, just come to schools, come to youngsters, come to teenagers, and give them just a short lesson of tolerance, of just common thoughts about radicalism and so on. It could be a very common and I think simple for implementing point how we can improve the situation nowadays. One more thing, practical one. Every citizen of European Union should know his rights, because if you want to protect your rights, if you think that your rights are violated and so on, you should know what you're standing for. So each citizen of European Union should have in his pocket, I don't know, in his jacket, the small book of UN Convention of Human Rights, for example. Just simple thing. In Russia, I represent some kind of opposition wing of Russian youth. Usually youngsters, if they protest, if they participate in demonstrations, they have in their pockets the law about police. And if policeman stops you on a demonstration and want to detain, you can show him this and say, look, this is article, you're not allowed to arrest me on this case. And policemen already start to think, maybe it's true. And it's the same here. When you know your rights, when you know what you can do and what you cannot do, it will be easy to fight against radicalism that could be come from the policemen who investigated some crime, and your rights could be violated.
And these kind of examples. I think it's also important to underline that what does Congress from that point is important to give the floor to young voices in the hemicycle. And so we have young delegates in this house and we listen them. What would you like to say in general? What can be the objective of the youth participation in these kind of sessions?
Youngsters usually afraid just to speak something because they're afraid not to be heard. And that's a great opportunity that we are here, that we can speak, that we have the right of voice in this hemicycle. And it gives us the motivation and knowledge, feeling that we are not excluded from the process of decision-making process. And it's a great opportunity, and I really appreciate that Council of Europe, the Congress, give us the floor and give us an opportunity to say something, to express our opinion. And this should be happened on every level, starting from the municipal level. On every level, youth should be included into social political process, into decision-making process, and not to be recognized as just a category of people who are knowing everything but don't know how to deal with things. It's the common attitude to youngsters. And also what I mentioned on a hemicycle, that usually we understand youth as something common, as a big structure of something. But we forgot that there are, inside this structure of youth, there are different small groups of youth. There are different kinds of youth. Because, we have workers, policemen, teachers, doctors, and we have youth in the same place. So youth is like a huge anonymous category of something, and it's also wrong position. And we should divide the groups in this big ball, let's call it like this, and influence on different methods and involve in different methods youth from different categories. For example, I am a teacher in a secondary school. I used to be a teacher, and my colleagues there are sportsmen, something like this. And we, of course, should use different methods of communication with me and with my colleague. And we have different thoughts, we have different interests, but how we can influence to all youth by some general methods? It's simply impossible, some general words. That's why we need to specify it.
It's also a pleasure for us to have a youth voice on our Congress Media Box. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.